Well. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to some of us around the world. This is Loic from Music Expo, and I am very excited about our session today. Before I do a brief introduction of our panelists, I'd love everyone dialing in right now to drop basically the city and country that you're joining us from, and also, hi Rick, and also what you do if you're an independent artist, if you're a producer, a musician, if you're just in the music business, why are you here? Tell us, we want to know more about you. So how I said, my name is Loic. I'm the founder of Music Expo. As you know, every Thursday we get together to talk about different aspects of music, from production to mixing, mastering, and business. And today we're going to talk about music royalties and really how to maximize it. And I'm joined by a wonderful panel of 4 incredible individuals here. I would like to welcome Rob Bunstein. Rob, how are you?
Great, thanks. Hey, everybody.
Great. Rob is the VP of membership at HIFI. And if you want to learn more about Rob and all the other panelists, check out below in the description of the YouTube video. There's a full bio and links for each one of them. Our second panelist is Will Griggs, also from HiFi. Will, how are you?
Doing great, Logan. I'm really happy to be here. And I see folks are already responding. We've got Howard, entertainment lawyer from Detroit. We've got a singer-songwriter, Kate from California. Really excited to have you guys, tune in. Really excited to be chatting with you guys tonight.
I love it.
Seems like a Thursday tradition. Glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you for joining it. Thank you for welcoming our presenters. Next on the screen, we have Cindy Nguyen. Cindy is Director of Artist Development and Operations, Head of Pop at Create Music Group. And Cindy was with us in our last ever physical event in San Francisco in November 2019. So Cindy, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, Loic. It's good to be here again. I know that since the last time, so many things have changed. The world has changed, but I'm excited that we can do this again virtually.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us from Los Angeles. And if you missed the first few minutes of this presentation, we're asking everybody to drop basically a quick note of where they're dialing us from and where they're dialing from and what do they do if they're a musician, a producer in the music business. We want to learn about you. Hi, Julian. Hi, Josh. And then our last panelist here, straight from Washington, D.C., we have Sean Glover. And Sean is Industry Relations Director at Sound Exchange. Sean, thank you for joining. How are you?
Man, I'm great, and thanks for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here for a lot of reasons.
Well, thank you so much for all of you for joining us today. And I'm very excited about talking about this topic, royalties, because it's a very nebulous, I would say, subject. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's also a lot of things that people don't know. And not because it's just simply complex, and hopefully we're going to take a bit this complexity out of the mix. And if you hear a scratching noise, it's just my cat who wants to be on television. All right, so I'm going to write in. If you're joining us, make sure you introduce yourself by telling us where you're dialing from. Actually, I wanted to make a quick announcement for 2 things before we jump into the questions. The first one is next week, we have something very special, and I'm just breaking the news now, and there will be more information shared on social tomorrow. But on February 23rd, we are actually hosting an Ableton Live 11 release party on our Discord server. And I got confirmation today that Javad Butta, who's one of the product managers for Ableton in the United States, will join us for an Ask Me Anything question. So if you're using Ableton Live, thinking about using Ableton Live, or just want to hang, make sure you keep an eye to our invitation. It will be on our Discord. It will be live video conference. Everybody's invited. It's going to be super casual. It's going to be a virtual meetup. And then the next thing I wanted to tell you is after this session, everybody is invited also to Discord just for a meet and greet and to network. So Encourage everybody who hasn't been with us on Discord before. Make sure you join us so we get to meet you, hear from you, and learn more about you. And without further ado, I'm going to go to my first question, which is, how has the pandemic impacted the artists you're working with financially and their income stream? And I will open it to any of you who would like to start.
So,
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Sean, jump in.
No, go ahead, Will.
Oh, we're all trying to be so polite. But obviously, you know, the pandemic has really upended so many aspects of careers, and you know, whether it is an artist or a manager or a team that's relying, you know, mostly on revenue coming from live performance, which obviously has been on hold for the past year or so, all the way to, you know, producers and artists, songwriters who are mostly, you know, based out of a studio. The nature of collaboration has been transformed through, you know, the shared experience that we all have in the music industry, you know, making our way through all the challenges, but also some of the silver linings that have been presenting themselves, you know, and people, it's been incredible to see how resilient this industry is. And, you know, I think it's really amazing. The folks that, you know, we're lucky enough to be presenting with tonight, you know, we're all working on behalf of artists, and the sense of, you know, community that's really come out of that, and the sense of sort of solidarity and camaraderie that's come out of that. One thing that we've certainly seen is that at Hi-Fi, our members are all music industry professionals, and we set up as many touch points for folks to connect and share information about what's working, and to really accelerate those learning curves. So if you have, you know, cracked the code on how to do live streaming a certain way, or you have generated new revenue through any new sort of revenue streams, or a new approach to your royalties, you know, really accelerating those conversations so that folks can, you know, figure out the things that are working. And, you know, obviously the attention on musicians and artists from their fans and the folks who want to support them has not waned one bit. And folks have been so resilient in figuring out new ways to, you know, connect with their fans and their peers in the industry as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say what we found. I mean, we're coming up on a year. I think the date we had was like March 13th. Like that was the day. I don't know about you all, but that was like when it was official that this is really a thing and it's happening. But you know, one thing that was confirmed in this pandemic is something we always knew, is that you know, I always said that there are three things that unite us as a people, no matter where you are in the globe or what your political affiliation is, religion, sexual orientation, and it's food. We're bound by food, sporting events, and music. Pandemic hits, restaurants shut down, there are no more sports, and the only thing we had left was music. And music was you know, comforting. It was a healing thing. It was, you know, it got a lot of people through in the beginning. And from, you know, to answer your question, artists, you know, creators create, and they're going to figure out a way. They did just that. They created a way, you know, like Will was saying, they figured it out on the streaming space, and just using technology that they had in their home, social media, to connect with their fans. But from, you know, my lens at Sound Exchange, we saw that streaming went up, you know, and not just for, you know, the question was about how artists are coping, but everyday people. We all needed that music to get us through, or to, you know, or to cope in some sort of way. So it was a really interesting time, man. You know, giving it a whole 365 days now, looking back on when it first started, and now, you know, how people sort of figured it out after those first 90 days, and then they're stepping on gas, and businesses being born from that. It was a real interesting process, but it was a little nervous. And, you know, I know some other questions later on down the line, I can get into what the artists are really feeling when it started.
Yep. Thank you, Sean. Sydney, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, it's just the whole pandemic is so interesting, right? Because you have like two factions, where there's the touring industry and the live events that really took a major hit. And then you also have the streaming side, which actually, there was a little dip in the very beginning because of the uncertainty. But, fortunately enough, our company has been able to thrive just because we're all digital. And it's just, you start to question the viability of certain sections of the music industry. And now, like, even if we go back with vaccines out and we go back to normal, you still in the back of your mind have to start thinking, I need to be able to convert my fans digitally so that if this happens again, like there is a pathway forward. And still too, it's just like, it's really exposed how you can still connect with people all over the world through digital platforms and through so many creative ways. I mean, we've seen live streams, we've seen just so many different kind of virtual even events that I think is really cool to see.
Yeah. And so from each of your different industry perspectives, how can an artist be maximizing their royalties through this period and be thoughtful about their finances? Rob, maybe you want to take this?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been such a moment for artists, as everyone was just describing, where this kind of completely upending experience has transformed so many things about the ways that we live, and people are kind of, trying to make sense of, first of all, what their royalties are and what they're made of. I think it's an area where artists who were quite dependent on touring may not have had a close lens on exactly how those other streams worked, how the registration of copyrights impact their ability to collect. Even, we've heard from bigger picture artists and producers that they never realized that they had substantial numbers of deals that maybe the paperwork never fully got processed by the label that they're doing business with, producing for another artist or something. And when they really go and dig, they realize, oh, we never got any accounting for that track that we produced in 2016. Let's go back and find that. So I think that's one thing, is that the fact that the artists, their teams, their financial teams, like business managers, have a little bit of bandwidth now that they're not just up against the wall with all the work that they're doing on the touring accounting. They're using that time to really make sure that they've turned over every stone. That's been something that we've been really excited to help with at hi-fi by organizing and cataloging everyone's royalties kind of all in one place, regardless of the specific channel that it's being collected from. I think we've had people sign up for hi-fi to try to get a sense of their royalties, and then we can help direct them, for example, to Sound Exchange and say, hey, we realize that you haven't connected any information about your Sound Exchange royalties. Would you like to sign up for Sound Exchange? So people can have that bit of educational experience and then actually go out and start collecting places where they ought to be collecting. And then, beyond that, I just think that it's been amazing as people really do think about their fans and how the fans interact with them, to push them to new channels that aren't entirely about royalties, whether it's, places like Twitch or Discord, or even directing people to Bandcamp, where you're buying more directly from the artist and the economics are a little bit different. I think people are being as considerate as they can possibly be about how and where they spend their money now, given how much they've seen their immediate neighborhoods transformed, entire communities kind of, crying out for help in this moment. That allows people to even be thoughtful about that when they're consuming an entertainment product like music. So I think artists that are thoughtful about all of those things are definitely coming out ahead right now.
Thank you. And actually, maybe Sean, you can complement, but let's say now you connect those artists to Sound Exchange. What happened? Money magically appear?
Well, no, we collect and distribute digital streaming royalties. So the music streamed on the web, cable, and satellite. So there's the web is the thousands of internet radio stations, and satellite, there's only Sirius XM in the US. And then cable, we call them the blue stations, those 800 channels at the end of your cable station. We collect those streaming royalties. And one thing I want to differentiate too, it's non-interactive. The way the law is written is non-interactive. So if you think of like the radio in your car, or the radio, AM, FM, terrestrial radio, where you listen. When you listen, you're at the mercy of the PD or the disc jockey, the DJ. You play what they hear. So there's no fast forward, rewind, pause, stop, any of that stuff. So it's radio-like in the digital space. But when they're connected with us, one of the main things we, like Will was saying, I found that artists, have been, you can either do it by force or you can do it by choice. And it looks like the pandemic has forced them to become more business related. A lot of artists just wanted to create, but COVID said, nah, you need to know what's happening, where are your revenue streams and where are they coming from right now, you're maximizing it. In our case, we find a lot, when we do get people, we want to make sure they're maximizing royalties, but we have a problem with the metadata. Sometimes, an artist is an artist. They all have a song and they all tweet it out or put it on Instagram and may not label it correctly. It gets reported back to me, us, and we don't know who to pay. So I don't care for all the listeners out there listening live or going to listen later. If you don't listen to anything, my one takeaway is to label your music correctly. You don't have to listen to shit else I say on this stream. Label your music correctly, because what happens is those songs undoubtedly will get streamed and it will earn royalties, and I won't know where to send your money. So when they come to us, that's the main thing, is to make sure that they're maximizing all the variations, because we pay on what's reported. So if it says featuring FT FAT dot, have all that, we can account for that. But if there's a name missing, it takes a little time to figure that out.
So I'm going to recap two of the tips we just received. Rob said, hey guys, since you're not touring right now, find out, if you don't have money or royalties somewhere hanging, a track you worked years ago and you haven't received payment for it, or a contract that didn't get signed. So make sure you do a kind of quick check-in on all those contracts or the collaboration you worked before to make sure that everything has been signed. And money, if money stops somewhere, it needs to be, it needs to flow back to you. And second, it's maybe time to go back to your tracks, everything you label and making sure, or not label, and make sure you label everything correctly. Is this, Sean, is this where we need to have the ISRC code and this type of information? Is that what you're talking about, the metadata?
Yeah, I would those are the two biggest tips. We can actually end the stream now, because those are the real gems. But yes, we have a form at on Sound Exchange. We call it a repertoire form, and basically it has title, album, label, P line, ISRC. Unfortunately, there isn't a global way to report. We hope to have that one day. But as much information as possible. It's a flat Excel spreadsheet, but the more, the better in our world. And it's, for those who listen, you can go to soundexchange.com. It's called a repertoire sheet. You can just search it, and you can download it and use that to fill out your form.
Yeah, I will say these things are related, because if you have a good record of all the tracks you've worked on, where you collaborate with another artist, where you write a song with another artist, that's something that when you realize that you're missing some stuff from your Sound Exchange repertoire, that's an opportunity to kind of do that comparison. So that's, again, a thing that we're hearing about from artists, from just getting started to artists that are, making millions of dollars a year. Just having that master list of, here are all of the projects I have been involved in creatively. Here are all the things that ought to be generating revenue for me. That's kind of the first step before you realize that something's missing, or you try to go back and tell somebody, hey, actually, I need to claim these 5 or 6 more songs because they're not on my repertoire on Sound Exchange, or they're missing from my PRO or something.
And to your point, this is the type of house cleaning. This is the time to do it. When you're not touring, because when you're touring, that's not how you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a very good point. Will, Cindy, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I was going to say, you need to know your splits on both the master and pub side, and understand that there's 2 sides to it, because it can be confusing when you're just new to the industry. But yeah, both are different, and you just need to make sure that you understand both so that you're being paid out correctly.
Great. I did a quick
Can
search.
I add one other thing? Cindy just reminded me of something. Cindy, that is so important, because it's at Sound Exchange, as we, for the independent artist who also owns their masters, which is, you're considered the rights owner. I don't want to make it too complicated. A lot of time artists just sign up for the artist portion, and in some cases they don't register for the master portion. So take care of all of that business right there. I tell people all the time, show business is 2 words, and you focus way too much on the show. We have time to do the business now. Let's get all that done. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, that time is of the essence, because that money for an organization like Sound Exchange is not there forever. You have a generous window that you can register and retroactively collect that payment, but it's not going to be sitting there waiting for you in 5 or 10 years. And also, I would just say, it might seem like a lot of this is very technical or very businessy, or not what you want to be thinking about as an artist, but knowing the difference between master side and publishing side is something that you can use to empower yourself later on in your career, because you might not always want to be a touring musician that records all your own music. You might just want to write songs and make that a part of your career. That could be a chapter down the line, or even just another layer that you can add into sort of your focus today. But knowing the difference between those things and how it impacts your bottom line is really what's going to allow you to create and do all the artistic things that you want to do. That so much of the motivation of what we're about is to help artists and their teams wrap their arms around the financial stuff and get the most value from that, so they can focus on the things that they do better than anyone, and not spend their time focused on the things that don't always feel like the most inspiring or exciting bits of it, but it's a critical piece of the puzzle.
Great. Thank you, Will. Please, you guys, we dropped some gems here already, and I see Alexotic is already dropping some, but drop a gem, icon or one, if this is helpful for you. We will actually look at some of the questions in the back of this presentation. And yes, Brian, I invested in a DSLR. Thanks for noticing this. I wanted to say that I did a quick Google search when Sean was talking about, metadata, and there's actually an amazing blog post. I found a blog post on Sound Exchange website. I dropped the link in the chat room on Discord. So you guys, after this presentation, you can, when you go there, you'll be able to go back and then check on your own metadata. So if you have any links, guys, or any recommendation, make sure you mention them, and I do a quick Google search and we'll post them. So those are great references for people to follow up on what we're discussing. All right, moving on to the next question. In a world where label deals and streaming revenues is structured in such convoluted ways, can you summarize how the various streams are structured, and how can artists maintain control and financial clarity? Heavy question. Who wants to take it?
I can start just from my little piece of the world. At Sound Exchange, the law is that we administer is very specific. So we pay artists and rights owners, or whoever owns the masters, directly. That is very unique in the music biz, but that means that those funds can't be used to recoup costs. Like someone can't say, hey, Rob owes me some money. We want a piece of the Sound Exchange royalties. Our position is, and even some artists come to us, and they say, hey, I want to give this money to this person. I'm in debt here. I want to pay this off. Our position is, hey, we're going to give you your money, and you do with it whatever the heck you want to do with it. And that we're very proud of that, because it can get really hairy, and just by the nature of the question you just asked. So by law, we have to pay the artists and rights owners directly.
It's great. Anyone else?
Yeah, your question is quite complicated because there's so many different
Yes.
platforms and so many different deals. I think at the end of it, it just depends on what's fit for you and what kind of your ultimate goals are. So for platforms, you know, YouTube, they pay based on ads. Spotify and Apple, you know, it's based on streaming and subscriptions. So each platform has their own way of paying royalties, and it's about understanding how each platform works. It's also understanding how each platform works also helps you with promo and how to get involved with that community. And then two, with deals, it just depends, you know, there's so many different companies that do kind of similar things, but have a niche. Like you have major labels who, you know, give you more support and have more connections, have more money, but you're ultimately giving more of your rights away and your control. So it depends on if that's what you're looking for, you know, majors to kind of basically do everything for you, or with independent companies, where, you know, you own your masters, you own a big percentage of your catalog, but, you know, it's not as much money, and but you still have more control. And so you can dictate, you know, your creativity, your rollout schedule. And it's more on an admin basis rather than like, oh, I own your record. So at the end of the day, it depends on what you're looking for, what kind of support you need. If you need someone to do everything, maybe majors are a great way. But if you have a DIY quality about you, and you have a good team, and you don't want to give your rights away, then going places like Create is a good way to be able to, you know, explore those avenues.
Great, thank you. So talking about cash flow, how does cash flow impact an artist's decision making? And are there any solve for the common cash flow problem artists face?
I can speak to that. I think a little bit, you know, related to just the last question, and you know, Cindy explained a lot of the challenges around the way that you know, the recorded music side of things are paid out, and Sean described you know, a different process for how Sound Exchange works. All the different kind of partners, as well as the intermediaries like distributors or record labels, have their own sort of accounting that happens as well. So all these different places where you make money, you know, ultimately from the Spotify's and YouTube's and Apple Music's of the world, as well as streaming web radio, and you know, in you know, retail establishment, you know, at the grocery store. All those things can generate revenue. They also get generated in different ways. Sometimes certain usages get paid on the recorded music side, and some get paid on the publishing side. And so that just means that even for the same you know, million plays that somebody might get on Spotify, they might be collecting 3 different chunks of revenue associated with those plays from 3 different parties, anywhere between 2 and 12 months after the plays happen. That's the case for all artists. You know, there's just different intermediaries in between that initial play and the artist receiving their money or receiving their reporting, which means that cash flow is really complicated. It means you could blow up on Spotify one week off of a TikTok hit, or you know, whatever the flavor of the month is, and you might not have a sense of how much you're actually going to make from that for quite some time. That lack of understanding, that lack of clarity about how that process works, is something that's going to give you, you know, going to kind of back you into a corner about the options that you might have to maintain cash flow, when the most intelligent business decision that you have is to keep investing in the project, to make a new music video, or create a collaboration with another artist around that same track, you know, hire on a social media team or someone to make you know, video content with you as you go back into the studio to make an EP to follow up this new hit. There's so many of those kind of things that require cash, and the structure of the business, no matter who your partners are, just results in kind of jagged and uneven access to the money that you're generating with plays that are happening right now, and a career that is kind of taking off right now. So you know, the solutions, and I think we can talk about maybe a little bit more down the road with how hi-fi takes a look at that. There's a lot of innovation because people recognize that there's such a problem. There's a lot of people making smart innovations around advanced products, different kinds of loan products, and in some cases, signing a record deal is in itself a way to get access to the capital and the team and the ability to kind of pour gasoline on that fire. So the industry has always had ways of kind of coalescing around people who are having a moment, and I think that there's a lot of room to grow in terms of that real financial clarity. What are you giving up in that exchange? When are you actually going to get paid if you leave things as they are and retain control? And how do you find the right partners who can help you grow your career while you don't lose that understanding of how the revenue comes? It might be a major label. It might be an independent platform that allows you to keep your rights, like Create. Of course, along the way, you're also collecting from Sound Exchange, and if you have written the music, you're collecting from other platforms, which we don't have representatives from the performance rights organizations or the MLC on here. But there's a lot to hold on to, and I think our message has been that you can't completely ignore all this complication. Hopefully you will find partners who help you with the business side of things as your career is developing, because you do need to focus on the show and you do need to focus on the business. I love that saying, Sean.
Yeah.
And I also want to add to what Rob made a good point, is that you have to really understand how each platform pays. Just because you get 1 million streams on Spotify, it doesn't pay the same as on YouTube and Apple. So understanding not only like what the rates are, but also when they pay out. So YouTube's like a month later, Spotify, Apple 2-3 months later. So that does definitely affect your marketing campaign or your cash flow. So that's something to just be cognizant about.
Yeah, it's a good point. And is there, Cindy, is there do you need to reach a threshold to get a payout, or it can come at any time?
At Create or just at any platform?
Any platform that you mentioned, like Spotify or YouTube.
I don't know if there's an actual threshold minimum. It depends. Sometimes certain accounting for each platform have a minimum, so that's something to be wary about. But I think for YouTube specifically, it's not necessarily an amount of views that you have on a video. It's like what kind of ads that were served on your video, if they're premium ads or if they're more brand safe. So there's a lot of nuances to everything. And then, there's just a discrepancy between someone who gets 10 million streams and then how much they get paid versus someone who has 1 million streams. Not only does the rate increase just by the sheer volume, but by the status of that channel or, that artist itself.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. In the meantime, I see some people who join us. So if you join us and you haven't had a chance to tell us where you're dialing from, and use dialing because I think we're on a Zoom call, but we're not. But where you're tuning in from and what's your profession or your daily activity would be super helpful. And I see also some of the questions dropping in. So we're going to keep them warm for the end of this session. So my next question is, can you share a story where you work closely with an artist to get them out of debt that was holding them back? What strategies did you employ? And I don't want to volunteer anyone, but if someone has a story, please jump in.
I wouldn't say out of debt, but we get one of my favorite part of the jobs is that not the big checks we pay out, it's the small ones, because those are the ones that we get a call saying, thank you, this kept the lights on, or I was, I needed some new teeth. Look, I get it all. I get it all. But it's really what I'm finding is that those little checks, and it's all relative, is really the lifeline for some artists and some people we love dearly, without saying any names. Some people have said I was close to having to drive a cab, and they've made timeless and classic music. Not that there's anything wrong with driving a cab. Before you guys mentioned me, I used to take cabs and the world was normal. But it's what we talked about earlier. It's making sure that they, like Cindy said and Robin Will said, make sure that they, dotted every I and crossed every T and got in touch with that other person they collabed with, or if there was a claim somewhere in our system that they got that claim resolved. Those are the ones that really, really stick out in my mind.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to add an anecdote that they want to share?
I have one that our company talks about a lot. Not that I personally did it, but we had a client, Deshaun Raw. He was on the verge of going to the military, but he had this like viral clip where it's a rap parody that was in tons of compilations on YouTube and meme accounts, and we were able to find and royalties from these user-generated content. Wow. To the point where we give him a sizable check every month. So ever since then, you know, he comes around, he does a lot of collaborations, and that's one story that was pretty notable, just because he literally, you know, was about to go to the military, and we were able to find a viable source of income just from YouTube.
Beautiful. This is amazing.
I have a funny story though, where
go ahead.
I have a not really funny, but interesting in the fact that we collect and distribute royalties, obviously, but there's also people that we have to contact and tell them that we have royalties for them. For a long time,
they don't know about that.
Oh yeah, they don't know. This was early on in the Sound Exchange life, where, you know, just think about it. My job was to call people and say, I have money for you. Just send me your driver's license, give me your social security number.
Amazing.
It's a little bit, you know, little tough gig. I used to get frustrated with it, but I got it. So as time went on, we had a list of people that we didn't, you know, that we still had to, we had royalties for. On that list, public enemy number one was Prince. He was like, every day, like, did anybody find Prince? Did we get Prince yet? Not that we need to find him, it's we just need to get him to register. That number was, it was really big. It would fill up the whole screen. A lot of commas. So one day I was talking with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis from the great producers, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis duo, and he said, I'm on my way to his house right now. I'm going to tell that a lot of bad words to register right now. Long story short, fast forward, he got Prince to register. Prince registered. I got a call one day. The phone, it was like 8 zeros and a 9, like typical Prince shit. I'm like, who? Like, it wasn't even like a foreign number. Like, you're like, what is this? Woman gets on the phone and she says, Prince would like to speak with you. I'm like, okay. He gets on the phone, and he's very smart gentleman, as you know. His business acumen is through the roof. He's asking all the right questions. I can tell by the line of questioning if you know what your working knowledge is. He asked all the right questions. He was understanding, because what we administer is a statutory license, so he didn't understand. He was wanting to get a better understanding as who gave us the permission to play. No, who gave the services the permission to play his music. You know, we got through that. But the one thing that stuck out was that, and I've never heard, an artist to this day has never done this, when you have a large check for them. He started asking about other artists to make sure that they were registered and getting paid. He just started running down a list of people that he wanted to contact and get paid. So Prince was that was definitely the cool day at work. The funny part of that story was that, like, every distribution he would call, and, you know, he was a practical joker on the phone, but that it didn't translate till he laughed. You're like, oh, ha, ha, you know, one of those things. But I never thought I'd get to the day when I look at my phone, I'm like, oh God, it's Prince. You know, but God rest his soul. That was a story that, you know, that we talk about at Sound Exchange all the time.
All right, Loic, thank you. This was great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having us here. Sean, that's unbelievable.
No, man.
No, he has more. Sean may have more. No, Sean, this is great.
No, that was it.
Royalties are cool, but we could spend the next 20 minutes hearing about all those other calls from Prince.
Yeah, we do want. Actually, I want to. Now, Sean, this is great. Because of course many of us are a huge fan, and we know what he resonate again is, Prince doesn't just look for, he was asking for himself, but the fact that he asked for other artists and making sure that they also get access to this type of information and get their money, it's very amazing. But I want to quickly do a pulse check with the audience. Drop a 1 if you would like to get one of those calls from Sean telling you, hey, I have money for you. Drop a 2 if you would like to hear, if that was a cool story to hear about basically his exchange with Prince. And I'm sure I'll get a 1 and 2s floating in a few seconds. All right, so we have the next question. Thank you, Sean. And if you have any, this was great, an anecdote. So Rob, I have a question for you. Oh, I'm getting a lot of ones. So clearly, El Exotic would like a call from you, Sean. So Rob, hi-fi has created an amazing platform for managers and artists that allow them to, 1, find transparency from open conversation with one another, and 2, parse your cash flow into bi-weekly payments like a paycheck. What have you and the managers you work with learn about using the platform regularly and relying on it?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And yeah, definitely going into pitch mode after I've just have so many more Prince related questions, but I'll get right to it. Hi-fi is what we call the financial rights organization for the music industry. We're focused on increasing financial transparency and access to information and financial tools for, specifically tailored for the music business. So what that means is we have members, and members can join hi-fi at no charge, at no cost, based on either invitation or application only. And our whole business is built around listening to our members and hearing exactly the problems they're confronting and the solutions that they would like to have built. It's not too challenging, to sit there and say, hey, what's challenging to you about the way that you receive royalty income? You will always get a lot of information from people if you just ask that question and listen. And beyond specific information about the way that they collect royalties streams, a big thing that people wanted was to be able to connect with each other and connect with people with expertise around. I think that there's been for a long time, people have been worried that they're not knowing 100% of the business with some kind of shortcoming, and managers or artists would have maybe another manager or artist that they would call and just ask a question like, hey, what's this, like what day of the month am I supposed to get my sound exchange statement? Those kind of people kind of keep it almost a little bit quiet in between just a couple of trusted people. We want to make sure people have the opportunity to connect widely about that stuff. People are asking for that. So we're building a lot of different ways that hi-fi can connect with our members. We can connect people in our membership with people from outside with different kinds of expertise. We'll mention things like helping people connect with some of the smartest minds around how to build a successful and profitable live stream. It's hard to get all of your ducks in a row and do that really well. We want to help people have access to that body of information. So that's just something that, we love doing that because we always learn something from the questions people ask and the types of problems they're trying to solve. So that same kind of inquiring approach is what led hi-fi to create the cash flow product as well. So cash flow takes to be pretty brief about what hi-fi's products do. The hi-fi royalties dashboard kind of collects and organizes royalty information from a wide variety of sources, from all those different ways that you collect money, from streaming and publishing and neighboring rights and even platforms like Bandcamp, and pulls it all together. And what it can do on the financial side of things is hi-fi can evaluate that information, get a very good sense of an amount of money you're likely to generate over the next 12 months, and actually break it into twice a month payments, just like a paycheck, and give people that kind of guaranteed minimum income that they've never really been able to experience before. So, to speak about, the type of artist or manager to whom that's exciting, we've heard from people like songwriters who are still recouping an advance from a PRO, which is the principal income that they have. And as they kind of recoup that advance, they're getting into a situation where mostly they're going to see money every 3 months on a quarterly cadence from that PRO. They're a songwriter, not an artist, so they don't have music that's getting worked by a label or being released through a distributor where they're getting those direct streaming payments. And an artist like that kind of has to wait 3 months between payments, check the website and see how much money they made that month. And they hope it's a number that's going to get them to cover their expenses and hopefully also fund with a sense of security the creative career that they have, costs of running a studio, costs of new software, microphones, whatever it is that they're investing in to make their career work. And instead of having that terrible waiting game where you have a month of plenty and then 2 months that are basically like a desert, we have people get a guaranteed minimum payment. If they end up getting a larger payment than expected, we can flow through the additional amount to the artist just like a bonus. So they still experience those kind of spike events if they get a placement in a film or a Netflix show or something. And hi-fi just charges an administrative fee for people who get cash flow of 2%. So it's something that has been met with a great deal of excitement from everyone from artists, managers, business managers, and something that we hope can be a part of just increasing that level of security that you can have as a creative person and not just be left kind of waiting to understand how and when you're going to make money. It takes that sense of security to be able to take that next step. Maybe it's quitting a day job. Maybe it's moving to LA, whatever those things are that might move your career forward. Having that sense of security is essential.
So to try to simplify it, for me, basically you kind of try to predict the revenue stream and make it a steady income that's paid every 2 weeks, with some ups when there is an increase in income, but otherwise, at least you would make an assumption of this is the base salary you will get every 2 weeks, and with us, you guarantee to receive that based on prediction.
Yeah, you did great. You actually did it much more quickly than I did. So we should snip that out.
Listen to what you were saying and try to summarize. Yeah. And I think to tie back to what Cindy said earlier, it's even more important when you have all these different platforms that have different mechanism of paying you. And sometimes it's per month, sometimes it's every 3 months, maybe some depending on the type of advertisement. So taking this element of fluctuation, it's another. You take that out basically of the equation. You bring stability, and we know as artists, we need stability so we can focus on creating our art and not doing predictability games. Super, super helpful. And the second aspect that I heard from you is also you have this type of community where people exchange kind of best practices of what they learn. This is something also Will mentioned earlier. So it's not just a financial platform, but it's a cash flow platform, but it's also this kind of wealth of knowledge that your members can share to improve their business, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Switching to Sean, there's a question for you, but if you have another story with one of our beloved artists, please don't feel free to drop it. But Sound Exchange pays out royalties. Actually, let me take a pulse while you answer this. While I ask, how many of you, drop a 1 if you know about Sound Exchange? And I've seen some people actually who already signed up, but actually a 1 that if you know about Sound Exchange, and a 2 if you don't know about Sound Exchange or if you have not signed up to, so we get a sense. So Sound Exchange pays out royalties to artists, and it's a huge reason that they can continue to tour, record, and so forth. How should a career artist manage relationship with companies like Sound Exchange in order to maximize?
We should, for one, our website, we have what we call the Sound Exchange portal. We just launched not too long ago. It's similar to like your online banking, where you can make changes, upload like that repertoire sheet I talked about earlier. You have, you can, make claims on certain songs, add contacts to the record, a lot of different things. Sound Exchange, like, just so that they're clear, is we're the in-between person between the DSP, the digital service provider, and the creator, the person who owns the who performed the song, or who owns the copyright, or the master owner, or what we call the rights owner. We pay what's played, what's reported to us. To answer that question directly is, you should be in touch with us. Like, a lot of artists sign up with us and then they're done. They forget about it. But as you create new songs, again, going back to my first statement, those first 2 gems we dropped, you need to keep us abreast on new projects, and even if it's not commercially released. As long as you have ownership of the song, we need to know about it. That is again the one takeaway you should have from this. Not the Prince story, but that labeling your music correctly, your work correctly.
And do that every time they have a new project out, or they're working on something. They should refresh or update.
You know what I'm finding though? I'm finding it's the For the Love of the Art songs, where they just do something, it's a little TikTok song, or it's something that they just doing for fun, or maybe collab with someone else. Those are the ones that grow legs. You got to remember, we have, every university in the US has like a radio station that's probably ran by some sophomores, their work study, and they play the new stuff. Like that's where it's really being breaking. They'll play stuff just because you sent it to them. Believe it or not, those same colleges are licensees of Sound Exchange, and when those songs are played, it earns money. So those things that you may not think is my big commercial release, or it's just something I did with my kids in my kitchen. Those are the ones that also can get you paid.
Because those college radios, they might, as you said, they're looking for the new stuff, so they might hang on.
Oh yeah, they're anti whatever's popular right at that moment. They're anti that. They go the other way.
They're going to look for the underground stuff on SoundCloud and play it.
Exactly.
So that's good to know. So you make sure, I'm not seeing enough ones here, but make sure you sign up for Sound Exchange and do all this the necessary paperwork. We've brought up Sound Exchange many times at Music Expo, and it's always like a wake-up call to many folks. Thank you, Sean. Cindy, I want to pass it to you. And Create Music Group is a leader in monetizing YouTube. I've seen actually you had a couple of great track records the last couple of months, or even during the pandemic. But what have you learned from working with huge artists like J-Lo that can apply to every artist when they approach monetizing their music on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the secret sauce, right? What is the how-to, right? The biggest thing that I've learned is that there's ebbs and flows, the music industry, genres, and there's not really one best way, perfect way for everyone, just because everyone is so different in different circumstances, and there's different things about your personality, your music that people love. So it's what's really important is understanding your audience, and then there's foundational practices within each platform. The one thing that I guess the two things that can apply to everyone is consistency, being relevant, staying part of the conversation. Like that's something that's really important, because you want to kind of give that fan service and kind of continue exploring, developing your sound so that you're still in that conversation. And also engagement. Engagement is really, really big thing. It's like a lot of artists don't realize that they have to engage with their fans for them to love them back. So that's a really big key. And the last thing is planning. Nowadays, like planning is, everyone just thinks about like the next song, but DSPs, they're looking for like, what are you doing a year from now? And also that helps you, keeps you organized. So, on whether it's on YouTube, having a plan for what your content is for the next few months, mapping that out, and then seeing what works for us, or it's with the DSP, having a plan of not only this single, but what about the following singles, if you have a big wrap-up project. So it just depends, right? You know, at the end of the day, who you are, what people like about you, you know, what you're comfortable doing. But consistency, having a plan, and engagement. Those are the three key things to help you be able to grow and monetize.
Guys, we're going to turn that into soundbite. Consistency, a plan, and engagement. Okay, 3 things you need to remember. And the plan, this is something we talk a lot because so many people are just dropping their single and then that's it. And you should never do this ever again after attending a music expo or one of our live stream. You should really think about multiple beats, what's going to be your content strategy, how you're going to engage with your audience before, during, and after the release of your music. Super important, and I will fight to bat for this because I'm a huge believer in it. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Just add one more thing quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even though, like, I think there was a song like by Taylor Swift where she dropped a song at midnight, even though it looks like someone is dropping a song like off spontaneously, it doesn't mean that happened that way. That song probably took months, like DSPs knew about that song months ahead. So that's something that's really important. Just because it looks like it's a surprise drop doesn't mean that there wasn't any planning, a lot of pre-engagement that went into that.
Way to kill their dreams, Cindy. Way to let them know. It's great.
No, it's true. And again, it's Taylor Swift. She's made also part of, I mean, she's surprised and she made that part of her brand. It became almost a running joke this year. You know, she dropped 3 albums in 12 months. But not everybody's Taylor Swift. And again, even if it looks like it's last minute, it was not. It was planned. And some people were in the game. So very good reminder.
What's next? Let me guess. There's no Santa Claus either, huh?
Don't tell me the artists losing on the big award shows.
We won't burst that myth.
Okay.
Will, I have a question for you. When you look at all these streams of income, YouTube, Sound Exchange, ASCAP, BMI, etc., where do you see artists make the biggest mistakes when it comes to managing cash flow and planning for the future? And how does your company, hi.fi, help them navigate this landscape?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that 2 key factors definitely play a role time and time again. One is a lack of awareness, because if you, for instance, we have talked to very successful managers who, you know, are working with artists who are, you know, potentially playing arenas and things like that when that's something that they can get back to. And you can ask them, you know, don't give me a number, but do you know how much money you made in the last 12 months? From those royalty streams? I don't know. Do you know what the next check you're going to get is going to consist of? How much it's going to be for when it's coming? I can't tell you. And on the other hand, a lack of being deliberate, a lack of, and this really speaks to Cindy's point as well, a lack of really thinking about the long-term plan, because it might, especially for an independent artist and you're on the come up, you're on the rise, and you can see those engagement stats and it seems like things are really happening, and it seems like now might be the moment to take a big advance or to sink a lot of money into a music video or into anything, and to really see how that money is being generated and when it was generated, and to really be able to put the pieces together of how the strategic actions that you're taking in your career really are having an impact on your bottom line is really key. And that's one thing that was a driving motivating factor for us building the hi-fi royalties dashboard, was to give folks an easy way to look at not just how a track performed on Spotify versus Apple, but how that track performed across any royalty stream that generated revenue for them, so that you can really see where there is success, how you can double down on that success, but just as importantly, where there is room for improvement. How are you going to get those numbers up to a point that you're going to be able to push your career forward in the way that you want to? And without having the awareness of when that money was generated, when you're getting paid, it can really throw off your entire release strategy. Folks are collaborating more than ever. They're releasing more music than ever. But if you don't have a deliberate plan as to how those things fit together and what your goals are for those projects, you can end up in a really tough situation where opportunity might be knocking at the door, but you don't have the resources to take advantage of that because you haven't put yourself in a strategic position and played the long game of being aware of where your money's coming from, when it's coming, and being very deliberate about how you build from strength to strength in a way that is going to have a long-term effect. And not just pushing all of your chips on the table at every turn, because you're going to end up in a situation, where the roulette wheel hits black, and then you're stuck in a situation where you're going to have to make uncomfortable decisions that could have been avoided if you were taking a proactive stance. And I think, I completely understand as well that, for a lot of artists, a lot of managers, a lot of industry professionals in music, it has felt like for so long, the cost of doing business in music was that your finances were going to be opaque and crazy, and it's going to take you forever to get paid. And sorry, you chose to be in music. You chose to be creative. You chose to be an artist. And I'm sure I can speak for everyone on this panel that we're all working as hard as we can to make that entire mindset a thing of the past, and really allow people to, see the full picture and operate with a full deck of cards, so that they're not shooting from the hip, which can be an easy trap to fall into, especially when things are exciting and fast moving, as they often are in music.
Yeah. And having all this, what I love is having a central place to look at all of this, because there's so many possibilities, so many places to earn revenues today, that I think it's important to have a place where you can aggregate, or at least try to get a global view and see where our blind spot. We went through 10 questions, and we're almost at time. We've been live for an hour. But what I wanted to do is maybe spend another couple of minutes, if you don't mind. I hope you're okay, to at least address a couple of the questions from the live audience that tune in with us live. And if you don't mind. So there are a couple of questions. I'm going to pull them, and you tell me if this is okay or not okay. But I think this question from a lovely friend from the Bay Area, actually, which sign up for our own individual accounts on SoundExchange, SongTrust, and ASCAP Artist Pub. Congratulations for signing up. This is already the right step. What else should they be signing up for? Should they apply for a membership at hi-fi? Should they look at when is the right time to look at We Create Group? Anyone want to take this?
Yeah, I'll address that just a little bit. Those are really important platforms, and you've got a lot of the bases covered. That's a great starting point. I think to a lot of the points that we've been making, that shows a great understanding of the nuts and bolts of the business side. But I think there's also been so many amazing pieces of commentary about the steps that you make that are going to really drive your career forward, which, the nuts and bolts are the key component of that. But there are so many choices to make on the creative side about collaboration, about that release plan and the beats that you might hit before, during, and after that release, establishing a good cadence. That stuff is worthy of so much attention as well. And I know it's like, you have to do all the jobs, and it's a challenging thing. In terms of other things to be thinking about and signing up for, depending on how, who you are and what your fan base is like and what your relationship is like, think about, are there special things that you would sell just on Bandcamp, and you take advantage of things like Bandcamp Fridays, which have been great moments of bringing music fans together to support the artists that they love. Do you, if you are creating a lot of non-musical video content, I think Cindy could probably speak to this better than I could, but to be monetizing directly with YouTube on top of the music monetization that you can do. So certainly some channels, outside of those core music rights channels that can be part of the equation, even just like setting up a simple Shopify store to sell some merch, lots of different options. And, I think it's really all about understanding your fan base and hopefully meeting them when they are excited about what you're doing, with a way that they can they can pay you to show you how much they care, basically, and you can give them something that's really valuable in return. And one of the questions that we had talked about, that we didn't get to, is about live streams. There's lots of interesting options there. We could kind of go on forever about these different options and opportunities, but it's really important to be kind of both inwardly thinking about the things that you are good at and the things that you can bring to your fan base and the things that they want, and meet them in the middle. And for artists that are kind of getting to the professional stage of their career, where it's really the main way that they're making a living, a tool like hi-fi could be a great part of that mix. And just as Loic was saying, that's a way for people to really understand that 360 global view, kind of in one place of what's going on.
Super, super helpful. I'll jump to the next question. Thank you so much, Rob, for answering this. And I hope you guys in Exotic, you found that helpful. Pulling this one, Sean, this is for you from Tim Garcia, I believe, which I know has been a frequent attendant. This is actually, I pulled this out because I think I've heard it a couple of times. My recording rights on SoundExchange overlap with CD Baby's disc manufacturing company. What's the best way to resolve this or avoid it in the future?
Say it again. He said it overlap. What happened? What was the question again?
So my recording rights on SoundExchange overlap with CD Baby disc manufacturing company. What's the best way to resolve this or avoid in the future? My release was digital only.
It's a CD Baby now. We would definitely, it would definitely have to be a claim. Our claims department, which is run by a good friend of mine, Scott Barrison, just to let us know the dates, I guess, where the overlap happens, and we can get that resolved. We work closely with CD Baby, and this isn't an uncommon thing.
Great.
So it would be very easy to resolve.
Contact the claim department with your request. I
just gave his name, so I know this is being recorded. He's going to kill me, but he's the head of claims, Scott Barrison. But Scott, if you watch this video, I'm sorry, but Scott's a great guy. We actually do our little, when the world was normal, we would go to conferences and do our presentation together. So this isn't uncommon. So don't. I hope you not feel alone in this, but it's easy to resolve.
Yeah, this is great. I pulled this out because I've heard it a couple of times, this type of overlap, how you manage it. So, team, you can contact Scott on behalf of Sean.
Claims department.
Pulling this one from Julian, is there a legit company that does searches for unclaimed royalties, a website where an artist can search? Anyone here? Cindy, how do you look for, unclaimed royalties for your artists?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for other platforms, but for YouTube, if you have catalog that you think that is being used by other people, you can always contact us, and we can do just like a free analytic and audit of, what's out there for you, and just give you a snapshot of what's missing and what's not. So yeah, if that's something that you're looking for on YouTube specifically, then you can totally reach out to us.
Great. Thank you. And on this, I just want to close up. Look like a couple of people really enjoyed the conversation. Okay. Those guys really appreciate your insight, Rob. So thank you. And team, definitely thank you, Sean, for giving the tip on contacting your claim. On this, I want to please drop a 1 if you enjoyed this conversation. Actually, a 5 for 5 of us. Drop a 5 if you enjoyed this conversation. You will be able to watch the replay. Want to thank all of you for joining us. I know it's late. Really appreciate. For you folks on the East Coast, it's already like 10 p.m. So thank you so much. We're in the music business. We're used to late nights, but really appreciate any closing statement, one word of encouragement or advice you've been thinking of that would be you want to leave our audience with. Will, I'll start with you, top left.
I would just say, if there's one thing that's been so clear to us over the past years, there's no one way to build a career in music. Follow what you love, work with people that you respect, ask as many questions from people you think are great at something. You'll be surprised at the responses that you get. Be respectful, be curious, and have fun with it. And, just hope everyone, look, thank you again. I hope everyone stays safe and, let's make this year better than the last one and keep building.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else?
I would just say, just keep pushing, man. Don't normalize this. We'll get through this together, whether you're in music or not, but just be ready when the world opens up. Make sure you're in position to score and have all your business together. But we'll get through this.
Thank you, Sean.
And then for me, really important, get educated and work with people who are very.
Yeah, absolutely. So get educated. We missed the last piece, probably the signal that,
The last piece is work with people who are transparent with you.
Work with people who are transparent with you. Absolutely. That's great. And Rob, you will be the closing statement for you.
Okay, I mean, this is something I've really thought about for a long time. Over a decade and a half in the music business. Every last bit of value in this business comes from that relationship between the artist and their fans. That's not just dollar value, that's emotional value. That's everything that music brings into this world. It's about that relationship between the artist and the fan. And there's all this crazy stuff bolted onto it. And it's so important to kind of understand what's unique about the way that money is generated in the music business. It helps set you up for things like Will said, career changes. It is a key piece of what makes this business so, interesting for a lot of us and challenging for all of us. But it's the relationship between the artist and the fan that's where everything else flows from. So make something amazing, listen to your fans, build that relationship. They'll follow you to whatever comes next. It might not be royalties after this. It might be, I don't even want to conjecture. But if you make that real connection, people will follow you wherever you want to go.
Great, thank you. Thank you all of you for being with us today. We will jump in the Emmy Lounge VC. Some of us check our upcoming events, but make sure also you jump in the video chat. I'll be there in a minute. Just give me a second to close this, say thank you privately, and do a temperature check. So I'll be joining the Discord. You received the link to the Discord in the invite, the reminder. So make sure you click on it. Super easy, and we'll see you around. And on this, we're gonna end. Carmen, I would ask you to end the broadcast. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.